Hi, it's Sarah with House Copper. And today, instead of being in the copper shop to explain this, I thought I would talk about it here where I used to do a lot of videos. But I've been getting some questions, and this is something I've been asked many times on several videos. The difference between tin and silver lining. I know I talk about tin linings in copper cookware, and I talk about stainless steel linings in copper cookware, and a few people even ask about aluminum and nickel, and I'll address that slightly as well in this video because I feel like I've talked about tin and stainless many times. So today is just going to be just a really brief comparison, and I'll send you to a couple places where you can see some visuals. But the biggest difference between, well, there's a couple of big differences between tin linings and silver linings. The first and foremost one is cost. Silver is more expensive than tin as a raw metal, so the cost for lining your pots and pans with silver instead of tin increases the price exponentially. It doesn't matter even if you're using only a small amount, because the other big difference is the application. So it is actually not possible for someone like me who has a traditional coppersmithing shop with the old tools and the old ways to line a copper pot with silver. And the reason is because the heat needed to do so, tin melts at about 450 degrees, pure tin, whereas silver melts at about 1760 degrees Fahrenheit, and copper is 1984 degrees Fahrenheit. Those are the melting points of those three metals. And as you can see, there's a huge difference between tin and copper. So I don't have to worry about, that 200 degree difference between silver and copper, between silver and tin. Copper and tin. So if I'm trying to melt tin in a copper pot, it happens without any issues to the copper pots themselves. They don't even get very annealed in the process, and I'm able to line them with hand wiped tin and move on. Whereas the silver, being so close to the melting point of copper, I would need to be able to regulate that temperature perfectly and not suddenly overheat that copper, or suddenly that pot, the copper would melt. Also, because of that high temperature, I, as a tinsmith or as a retinner at that point, I can't wipe that silver in. I would need to set up a very involved, expensive electroplating system to electroplate the silver into the copper. That is the way that silver goes into copper pots. And that's a whole different setup. That's a whole different process. It's not a traditional smith, what we would do. And so that whole process is very different. It's much more involved, much more expensive. So when people come to me and say, well, can't you just line this with silver? It's like, well, no. I mean, unless you're going to pay for me to have a whole new setup, which I would have no problem with. I would happily add a whole nother section to my shop, but that's a big investment. And so few people want silver lined pans. Now, that said, in terms of use, the difference is that tin obviously wears down a lot faster than silver, and that's just because of the hardness. And pure tin is a very soft metal. Silver is not as soft, and so therefore it will last much longer as a cooking surface than tin. So tin will wear out in a decade, maybe 15 years, depending on if you're taking care of it the right way and how often you're using it. Whereas silver linings just tend to last so much longer, and just because of hardness. And just in the same way that tin goes into copper pots where they do have a chemical bond, a molecular bond, and they are exchanging an electron and stuff, the same thing happens with silver and copper. They do bond and they do exchange different properties and have an actual molecular bond, we call it. And And it's because all these metals are non-ferrous. None of them have iron. We're not dealing with the situation that I talk about when it's stainless steel interiors. And so that's one of the big differences there. And also because the melting point of silver is much higher than tin, you can, of course, I don't want to say abuse these pans, but you don't have to worry about the interior of a silver lined copper pot melting on you if you accidentally heat it empty, or you accidentally rev up the heat without enough cooking material and matter in the pot the way that you would. So in a way, you don't have to babysit, though I say that so carefully because I don't babysit my pans. Granted, I did overheat one because my kids were distracting me the other day. But you don't have to worry as much if you are more nervous about tin linings. If you did have a silver lined pan, you wouldn't have to worry. Now, I will say that chemically, silver linings do react more to tarnish. You might even see them react to different cleaners in a way that tin won't, but usually you can take that tarnish out and there's not much discoloration left, and it will perform the same way. On a health level, because I also get that question, especially about tin, but I'll address it here with silver. Both silver and tin they don't have any known toxicity to humans. So whether you have a little bit of tin flake off while you're cooking for some reason, or if the silver starts to wear out and you worry that it's gotten into your food over time, tin is a micronutrient, just like copper, so that's fine. And silver is not known to have any toxicity. Obviously, if you ingest tons of it, and get a ton into your kidneys and your liver, you would have to be eating it on purpose. A lot of it, you might see some digestive issues, but these metals are non-toxic to humans, and they don't have a lot of reactionary issues with the pH of our food either. They're inert. So I'm going to just quickly then digress briefly and talk about aluminum and aluminum linings and nickel linings. Both of these are not done anymore. The nickel lining, partially because nickel allergies, and imagine having to worry about, oh shoot, I cooked a meal in a pot lined with nickel and I have someone here with a nickel allergy and they're ingesting that food. No different than when you go to a hospital and they ask if you have a latex or a nickel allergy. Same thing. So that has kind of gone away, and thankfully most nickel can be removed, and then from older pots, and tin or silver electroplate can be put in. And then same thing with aluminum. I had someone ask about aluminum, and I actually looked into that at one point just to see, because aluminum is also non-ferrous. Maybe, it's harder. It might last longer as a lining. What does that look like? I did the same thing with chromium, actually, too, to see what we would have to do. Chromium, funny enough, does not bond to copper on a molecular level. You'd have to etch it with acid and create nanostructures and then kind of create a Velcro, mechanical bond, and the chromium still kind of flakes off all the time, so it did not work. But the aluminum, the problem with that is, in order to get it to bond to the copper, and I spent a lot of time looking at this early on when I started building the business almost a decade ago, because I wanted to know stone unturned. In order to bond the aluminum to the copper, we would have to create some sort of oxygen-free zone where this happens, because aluminum would not adhere to the copper unless there was no oxygen. And then yet with heat, how do you get a fire going? And it just became so difficult to figure out that, and the process just had never been done before, and it wasn't in place. And there really isn't a demand for aluminum lined copper cookware. So I decided not to do that. And I know a big reason now that I know what I know is that no one does it is because it is the process to get the aluminum to bond to copper is very difficult, if not impossible. Or if it is possible, no one wants to go through the rigmarole to do it, including myself. But anyway, I hope that has answered most of the questions about silver lined copper cookware, tin lined copper cookware. If you want to check out a little bit more about it, I know Brooklyn Copper Cookware has a blog that they talk about it in one of their posts. And Vintage French Copper that blog also has a little couple of blog posts about cleaning tin versus silver lined copper cookware. So if you're looking, I'll put those down below as well so you can click through them. And yeah, there it is. So just a quick little 10-minute discussion. I look forward to hearing what everybody else thinks, says. It's such a, this industry and dealing with copper pots, everybody has their opinions, their strong feelings about it. And I just want this to be a really cool place to share information and discuss and chat on in the comments and things like that. So anyway, thank you for being here at House Copper's YouTube page. Please follow me on Instagram and Facebook and pick up Copper, Iron, and Clay wherever books are sold. Don't forget to tell a friend about this channel, and I will look forward to seeing you here next time.